like it's working. All right, you guys, welcome. It's 10 o'clock. This is Rachael Cassady with the Utah Division of Drinking Water, and we're doing a 30-minute webinar on the IPS Rule update, which you all desperately need to know about. So please, if you have somebody with your organization that doesn't get a chance to watch this live, that's okay. You can share the link with them. And yes, you can get CEUs for watching this webinar. There will be 2 questions at the bottom of the description on our YouTube page, but give us about 2 days to get those questions set up. So you will get your CEUs for this, and we're just going to dive in because we have a lot to cover. I want to introduce Marie Owens, our director here at the Division of Drinking Water. She has spearheaded this project and has some things to say.
Thanks, Rachel. I just want to take a few minutes at the beginning of this webcast to kind of give you some history and some background as to why we're even going through this process. The IPS rule stands for the Inventory Priority System, or the Improvement Priority System. And we've referred to that as the report card rule in the past. Basically, it's a way for us to keep track through points of how a water system is doing. It's a really good way for us to identify water systems that are struggling and need some additional attention. This was a brainchild of Ken Bousfield from years ago, and it was really a great program in order for us to document and keep track of things. And when the whole program was initiated, I was working in the industry, working for a public water system. And I remember being a little bit concerned about having a report card and having those things tracked. As it kind of developed, it was a really great way to keep track of any significant deficiencies or violations, and for the Division of Drinking Water to communicate to the water systems the importance of those. Over time, however, every time that the division would recognize a new significant deficiency or a potential problem, we'd run across something, we would kind of add on to this rule. So we would add a paragraph to the rule that said, okay, if this happens, we're going to issue this many points. And by the time I left the industry, this was a 40 to 50 page rule that was all in discrete, separate paragraphs, and it was extremely difficult to figure out what points were going to be issued for various violations or significant deficiencies. And as I read through it, there were some very clear contradictions. So if you went to one paragraph, it might lead you to think that you would get 5 points. If you went to a different section, it might lead you to think that you would get 50 points. And so it had gotten cluttered and complicated. And I was concerned that it was no longer an effective tool to communicate to the water systems really those things that were important, that needed to be rectified, and for us to keep a clear idea of the water systems that needed additional attention and support. So when I took over this job about 1.5 years ago, we started to look at this rule and to see what we could do better about it. We also had been receiving some comments from the industry that there were concerns that the fact that we would give credits, and Rachael will talk about the the points versus the credits later in the presentation. But the fact that there were credits could hide significant deficiencies. And so the industry itself had been reaching out to us and asking for some cleanup on this rule. So we initiated a pretty intensive project with the staff just to look through what was working, what we wanted to make sure that we maintained, things that we could do better. And we really wanted to keep a focus on protecting public health, really identifying items that could impact public health while keeping the rule very simple, easy to communicate, and easy for our staff to track. And then the final component that we really wanted to track was after the initiation of our IPS program, EPA initiated a similar program where they keep track of points. And we wanted our system to identify prior to EPA identifying problem systems so that we could help systems out and kind of be a buffer between the water systems and EPA before EPA began to take enforcement action. So that's kind of the background of this. We've been working really hard to come up with a structure and some ideas that we can roll out to you as the industry. We are looking for your feedback. We really want this to be a partnership. We want you to let us know the things that matter to you with this program so that we can keep those. So we're coming to you in pre-rulemaking mode, asking for your comments and for your feedback. Rachael will have some schedules for that and some contacts later in the presentation. But we'd really like to make this a useful program for both you and us and EPA so that we're all understanding what is going on in the system and we're better informed to protect public health. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Rachael.
Awesome. Let's get to it. Thank you, Marie. All right, you guys, we got some fun things to talk about. So before we get into the nitty gritty, let me give you some of our acronyms. Please screenshot this and save it. But these are some acronyms that you're going to see in this presentation and a lot of times when you interact with us in our emails and our writing. We unfortunately speak in acronym language. And so these are some of the acronyms you're going to run into today. The Division of Drinking Water, a public water system, notice of violation, significant deficiency, which Marie mentioned earlier, that's a big deal. And then EPA's targeting tool, treatment technique, IPS, of course, and our different system types. So if you're a public system, you are classified as either community, non-transient, non-community, or transient, non-community. All right, so you got that. Okay, so improvement priority system, as Marie had mentioned, it was the brainchild of Ken Bausfeld, our former director. It's unique to the state of Utah. If you go to any other state, you won't run into the IPS, but obviously it's been around for quite a while. So we know it and we're used to it. Well, I'm used to it. Okay, so a way to show, it's just basically a way to show water systems how they're doing across the board with preventative programs, safety, monitoring. Is the water system taking their samples? It's a great way to see across the board how you're doing it. I remember Ken referring to it as like a measuring stick. It's a way for the water systems to measure how they're doing overall. And of course, we used to call it the report card rule, which is a great way to explain it. It's just kind of like, how you're doing, A's, B's, C's, and D's, except we use points. So to reference the rule, it's R309400, and I do recommend that you have this handy, especially while we're in the process of changing the rule itself. Make yourself familiar with it. This is the table of contents, and you can see I don't want you to read through this. I just want to show you it's big and it's ugly. And so we're looking at simplification and getting rid of some places where we're contradictory, and just kind of cleaning it up, making it easier for everybody, and just making it a better tool overall. So this is the rule itself. Bookmark it. Have fun with it. This is what we always talk about, how The improvement priority system is like golf. The more points you have, the worse off you are, of course, and you know that. And you guys all know, please tell me you know that in order to see your IPS score for your water system, you just go to waterlink.utah.gov, and I'll show you that online a little bit later in the presentation. If you go to Waterlink, and you can pull up your IPS report as a main report for your system. And it is public facing. So you can use these as like a PR tool. It's an important thing to be connected to. Okay, so the IPS, just basics. Community systems have to have less than 150 points to be approved. Non-transient, non-community systems have to have less than 120, and transient systems have to have less than 100. So what happens with these ratings? We have an approved rating, which means the water system is in good compliance because their IPS total score is less than the threshold for that system. We have not approved, which means that the water system went over the threshold and isn't interested in fixing everything, or hasn't told us that they're interested in fixing everything. And then we have this middle of the road corrective action where the water system found out that they had this point threshold that was over the limit, but they have a plan in place to get everything fixed. So we call that a corrective action rating. So how do you get points? Well, they're added at the time of your survey, your inspection, or we call it sanitary survey, or when the water system fails to take a sample, or when you do take a sample and the sample shows that there's a quality violation. And then we can get rid of the points found during the survey when we get proof that the issue that was found was fixed. So for example, if during the survey or the inspector marked down that the discharge piping was missing a screen, if you provide a photo of the screen that's been installed to fix that, then we will get rid of those points. So it's pretty simple. If you have points for failure to take a VOC or a nitrate or a lead and copper sample, but then you do take those samples and you provide the results to our office, then we remove those points. Coliform sampling is a little bit trickier. Those points remain on for 12 months of operation or 4 consecutive quarters of operation. Okay, so 2 main sections to your IPS report. The top part of your IPS report is going to list deficiencies. So these are the physical problems, issues that a surveyor or inspector found at the time when they were visiting your system. So deficiency is just a term that we use for these physical problems. I keep saying deficiency. I'm so used to it. And you guys, I have Jennifer Yee in here with me. She's our IPS Rule manager. Say hi to everybody.
Hello.
Jen's in charge of the system. So if you have a deficiency and you fixed it, when you send the proof to the division that you have fixed it, it goes to Jen. So she's your new best friend. So when you provide that proof of fix, you're sending that to Jennifer Yee. And then the second part of your IPS report is the violation section. So if you failed to take a sample, or you did sample and it showed a quality violation, chemical sampling, coliform samples, they'll show up in the violation sections. So keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to talk about deficiencies so that you can kind of understand where we're going and why we're here with this IPS rule revision. In 2009, so remember, we started with the IPS rule around about 1996. And in 2009, EPA released and we promulgated the groundwater rule. And a couple of things it required a huge handful of things, but I'm only going to talk about 2 here. It required sanitary surveys every 3 years, and it also required documentation of a significant deficiency. So significant deficiency is something that can cause, wait for it, significant health issues. So it's really bad. It's like there's an open pathway to contamination to your safe, clean drinking water. So these are incredibly bad, and we have to get them resolved because they can blow out of they can just get crazy as far as trying to get them fixed. So deficiency, some significant deficiency examples. This is how the IPS rule is set up currently. What I want to show with this paragraph is just the variety of points. So we have a deficiency that's only a significant deficiency where you don't have a proper screen. That's only 10 points. And we have another one where the pump house is not secure. That's only 5 points. But then an unprotected cross connection gets up to 50. And then, of course, if a water system lacks plan approval, that's 200. So we're dealing with an issue here with small points for something that is considered by the division and by EPA and also by yourselves because you're interested in keeping your water safe and clean with points that don't draw your attention into getting it fixed, and they're not useful for us in regulating the water system. So we needed to in this rule revision make significant deficiencies have significant points. I'm going to say that word a lot. Okay, so once a water system gets a significant deficiency, it's found at the time of the survey. And then if you're a groundwater system, you have 120 days to fix that. If you're surface water, you only have 30 days to fix it. So what happens if you don't fix it? While it's in that window of opportunity to get it fixed, it's 0 points on the IPS. But if you fail to fix it within these timeframes, then you get the points on the IPS and you get a violation for failure to fix a significant deficiency. And this is where you're paying very close attention because this is where we report this violation to EPA. So it's called a treatment technique violation. It's 35 points on the IPS score, which is, in my opinion, not enough because we want you to pay attention to this. We want you to fix it because every 6 weeks, am required to report these violations to EPA. And EPA is very on the ball with making sure that these are fixed because they care. Okay, so the whole point with the significant deficiency is that it's just a type of deficiency in the water system that has high potential to cause harm to the public health. And so it's something that you care about, we care about it, EPA cares about it. So I want you to, and I'll show you an IPS report here in a minute, go through your IPS report and look for anything that's listed as SIG or significant and make sure that you are on track to get that fixed before the 120 days or the 30 days to get it fixed. Okay, so you can understand where significant deficiencies, we want you to pay very close attention to them. We want you to get those fixed as fast as possible. And we want the IPS score to relate the intensity of this is a big deal and we got to get this taken care of quickly. Okay, so some more examples. We have lots of numbers, you guys. This example, this is a database number. It's PS13, but what this deficiency is defined as in our tracking is just it's a pump station that's not protected from flooding. And it's only 5 IPS points. But if you don't fix this, you get the treatment technique violation and EPA gets wind of it. And then other things start happening, on the EPA side, which I'll talk about in a second. Another deficiency, significant deficiency, a spring collection box doesn't have a proper screen. It's only 2 IPS points. Well, that doesn't provide you with the severity factor. That's not saying to the water system, this is a big deal. When you see 2 points on your IPS report, you're probably going to gloss over it and go to try to fix something that's a higher point total. It's just human nature. So we got to fix that issue with this revision. So EPA has their own IPS rule. In 2009, they created the enforcement targeting tool. We call it the ETT. It's a score system. Again, like golf, the more points you have, the worse off you are. The thresholds are the same for all public water systems. It's 11 points is the threshold. And the points are based on violations, monitoring and health-based violations. And there's also a time factor. So if you've had a treatment technique violation or a health-based violation and it's on there for a period of time, your points will slowly start to inch up over time because time is a factor in the calculation. And I'm not going to share the calculation with you because that would take another 30 minutes. But if you're interested, please get in touch with us and we'll show you that calculation. So an example of some points on ETT. If you fail to take a nitrate sample, it's 5 points on the ETT. So if you can imagine with me, you failed to take 2 nitrate samples in a row, that's 10 points. Well, look, your threshold is 11. So if you have anything else going on as far as a monitoring or health-based violation, then you're in trouble. And once EPA has a water system over 11 points on the threshold, what they're doing is they're knocking down our door and they're saying to us, hey, division, you've got to do some enforcement on this water system. We got to get this fixed as soon as possible. So it's a big deal. Another example is if you fail to take a routine coliform sample at one point. So we have the live version of the database for drinking water systems in Utah. EPA gets a copy of our database every 6 weeks. So every 6 weeks, I report to EPA the violations that have been documented and validated in our tracking. So they get wind of these treatment technique violations, which is, again, failure to fix your significant deficiency. And they start to change the scores on the ETT for that water system, and then we have issues. Okay, so ETT and IPS together, it's a struggle currently, and that's why we're revising the IPS rule. But just to show you, here's a real world community water system, and this is actually happening right now, but I'm not going to name the system. It's a community system. They have 309 IPS points, so it's greater than the threshold. So we have rated this system as not approved, and we're seeking enforcement against the system, trying to convince them that they need to get these things fixed as soon as possible. But on the ETT, it's only 7 points, so it's less than 11. So the system is not on EPA's radar. So you can see there's a conflict there. The two are not jiving together, and they don't have to be exactly the same, because IPS takes into account preventative programs like cross-connection, source protection, operator certification, and deficiencies, and ETT is only health-based violations, but these are so far off, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So another example is I have a transient system with only 90 IPS points, so it's less than that threshold for that system, so they're still approved. But on EPA's list, they're at 11 points, so they're at or over 11, which is bad. So EPA is coming to the division saying, you need to seek enforcement against this system, and we pull up their IPS report, and it doesn't exactly mirror what's going on with the points for ETT. So you can see my dilemma, my problem, and how we have to revise the IPS to make it make more sense across the board. So revising the IPS rule, we wanted to align the point values and ensure that the risk to public health drives the point totals. So we don't want something that's a significant deficiency being only 2 IPS points. And then, like Marie had mentioned earlier, we need to look at if the credit points, like we're giving credit points currently for emergency response programs and operator certification. If you're certified at a level higher than what is required for the system, there's credit points. And so there's a concern that those credit points are masking these significant deficiencies. Okay, so obviously, as I just beat to death, we want to better coordinate IPS and the ETT and just make it more simple. Like when I showed you that table of contents, how cumbersome it is to read through it. So in our attempt to revise it, we've made it much more simple and easier for the water operators to go through and for us to maintain. So I'm excited about the simplification. I like simple. Make my life easier. Don't make it more complicated. And so we have been working on it all year last year as a division, and now we're ready to work with the water systems, and we're going to spend some time talking to you, getting your feedback, making sure that what we're doing is got your backing. So just a short little example. Well, this is an example. This is it. These are the proposed point framework. So we want to just have 5 points, 15, 25, 50, 100, and 200. So there's no more 2 points, no more 3 points, no more 35, no more 40, no more. This is it. It's either 5, 15, 25, 50, 100, or 200, which is really nice. It's clear, it's concise. There's no arguing back and forth about why is it 2, why isn't it 10. It's just, it falls into these categories. Therefore, it is this point total. And it's important to remember that the thresholds remain the same. So if your community system, you still have to stay beneath 150 points. If you're non-transient, non-community, and transient, non-community, stay below your particular thresholds. So important to remember that. Okay, so some examples. On the current IPS rule, I have a failure to sample violation that's 35 points. And then I have a significant deficiency that's only 30 points, which in my opinion is, it depends on the deficiency, but it's hard when I look at these and one is 2 points and another is 30. It's just too big of a range. So the significant deficiency is 30, and then I have a minor deficiency, which is only 10. And then I have a treatment technique violation, which is failure to fix that deficiency for 35. So I have a community system with an IPS total of 110. But as you look at those individual points, you can see how it's weighted. It's weighted towards the treatment technique violation and then the failure to sample violation. So under the revision, my violation is now failure to sample is 25 points. My significant deficiency is 25 points. My minor deficiency went up a little, it's 15. But my treatment technique violation, which is the thing that you have got to avoid, do it for me, do it for you, is now 50 points, which really reflects the severity of what's going on. That treatment technique violation should be at 50 points because what it is saying to you and to me is it's saying there was a significant deficiency within the system. And again, remember, that's like opening a pathway to contamination that the water system didn't fix. And so this is a problem. And so I like that the treatment technique violations go up in points. That sends a better message to the water systems, and it also aligns better with EPA's enforcement targeting tool. So you can see that the IPS total only went up by 5 points, but just the weighted part of the fact that it's weighted more towards that treatment technique violation is something that I really like. Okay, so timeline of our revision. Right now, we want to talk about it. We want to educate you. We want to get your comments. We want to hear your questions and provide you some answers. So we're doing this webinar and expect a postcard mailing next week. We're going to send out a postcard that will get you more information, and we're also going to put more information on our website. So right now, we're in the process of just, hey, water systems, we're doing it. What do you think? We want to get your comments, your initial comments and feedback, and then starting in January of next year, we want to share the impact with you of what this change will mean to your particular system. So what we're going to do and what we're building are side-by-side IPS reports. So you'll be able to, in WaterLink, see your current IPS report and then pull up the IPS report under the revised IPS, and you can compare the two and then be ready to provide us with your official public comments when we go to the rule change process, which will be April through October of next year. What that includes, we have to go to the Drinking Water Board. We have to do an official public comment period. So we want to fill you up with information so that when we get to that official period, we've heard your concerns and we've made adjustments as necessary. And then we do want to implement the new IPS on January 1st, 2020. And so I call it the IPS 2020. So I compare the current IPS with IPS 2020, which is the revision. We need to have it done at the beginning of a year because we need the IPS rule set in stone to be ready for sanitary surveys, which start when the snow melts. So we want to hear what you think with what you've heard today and with the postcard that you're going to get and the website information. So Jennifer Yee, again, is our IPS rule manager. That's her phone number. Don't call her if you don't have to. It's just hard to nail her down. So we created a email address, ddwips@utah.gov. And this is a great way for you to document your questions, your concerns, and it's a more organized way for Jennifer to be able to get back with you. So, I mean, you can call her. I'm kidding when I say don't call her, but we want your comments in writing. It's helpful and clear and concise to see it in writing. Our website is drinkingwater.utah.gov. And then, of course, we'll be talking about this and providing more information as much as possible. At any time we're at a conference or we're doing a training, we'll talk to you about it in regular phone calls at the time of your survey. You can text me and I'll text you back about it. We can do emails, however, whatever is easier for you. So I'm in the rules section and we're kind of big. We're a big deal. This is the rules section at the Division of Drinking Water. We've got Michelle's our surface water rule manager. Randy is in charge of your distribution residuals, DBPs. Janet and Satara manage the total coliform rule. Emily's in charge of all the chem sampling. Matt's lead copper. Colt is our enforcement lead, and Brandy works with him on enforcement, and she also manages the CCR rule. Jen, who's with me, is in charge of IPS, so she's going to have a very busy year, and she already has had a busy year. Dallin's our database admin, and Ms. Tammy is our office specialist. And then this is me. This is my cell number. I know I'm hard to get a hold of with my office line, so I am very open to text. It's very easy for me to respond to a text. I get them all day long. Don't be afraid to text me. I will definitely get back with you. So I wanted to show an IPS report. And I'm covering up the system, but I wanted to show you how to look for significant deficiencies. So you want to go to your IPS report and water link, click on IPS, and look for severity. This severity code will tell you if you're dealing with a significant deficiency or not. And these are the ones that you want to pay attention to. So you can see this particular water system, they have some significant deficiencies, but you can see the points effective are at 0. The reason for that is they're still in that magic window wherein they can get this fixed without causing any harm to public health according to the rule. So, or hopefully. So this one though is not in the window. It's past the window, so it's got the IPS points, and then it will get a treatment technique violation. So this treatment technique violation down here, this is when these significant deficiencies are failed to be fixed. You'll also get a violation in this section. So we're just trying to make it so that you're paying attention to these significant deficiencies. We're also trying to make it so that the water systems don't have as much confusion like what Marie had mentioned in trying to interpret and read the rule and make sense of it. So we're excited about this change, and I just want to pop this timeline up here one more time. This timeline is so important to us to get your feedback, and we're ready for it. So I hope that you've learned something from the webinar. We will have some questions at the bottom for your CEUs, so be ready for that. And feel free to share this link with other people that you work with that didn't have a chance to listen live or watch live. And then we will be in touch with more information as we go throughout this process. So thank you. And have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.